War exists not because of warring groups outside in the world, but because man is in conflict. The root of war is within. Outside, you only see the branches and the foliage of it. Humanity accumulates so much rage, madness, and insanity inside that it has to erupt. Everyone is fighting themselves. And when it becomes too much, they start fighting with somebody else.
War provides escape from the boring routine of daily life. It acts as a release to criminal instincts. We are criminals in our daily life, in the world of business, in our relationships, but it is all very carefully hidden, covered over with a righteous blanket and legalized. War gives a release from this hypocrisy, and at last, we can be openly violent.
War is a mindset. There is a deep interrelatedness between one's state of consciousness and external reality. When one is in the grip of a mindset such as war, one's perceptions become extremely selective and distorted. One sees only what one wants to see, and then misinterprets it. One can imagine what kind of action comes out of such a delusional system. Or, instead of imagining it, watch the news on TV tonight.
War cannot disappear because there are people against war. War cannot disappear because of Bertrand Russell. If you have observed a pacifist protest, you can see how warlike they are. Shouting, screaming, protesting. You can see in their faces they are dangerous people. They don't know what peace means. They are very argumentative, arrogant, ready to fight. It almost always happens that a peace protest becomes a battlefield between the police and the pacifists.
Peace is not an ideal. An ideal is merely an escape, an avoidance of what is, a contradiction of what is. To have peace, we must begin not to live an ideal life, but to see things as they are. As long as we are seeking psychological security, the physiological security we need, food, clothing, and shelter, is destroyed. We seek psychological security, which does not exist, through power, position, titles, names, all of which are destroying physical security.
Economic revolution without inward revolution is meaningless. For hunger is the result of the maladjustment of economic conditions produced by our psychological states, greed, envy, ill will, and possessiveness. To put an end to sorrow, to hunger, to war, there must be a psychological revolution, and few of us are willing to face that. We will discuss peace, plan legislation, create new leagues, the United Nations, and so on, but we will not win peace.
What will bring peace is inward transformation, which will lead to outward action. Inward transformation is not isolation, is not a withdrawal from outward action. On the contrary, there can be right action only when there is right thinking, and there is no right thinking when there is no self-knowledge. Without knowing yourself, there is no peace.
To put an end to outward war, one must begin to put an end to war in oneself. Some will nod their heads and say, "I agree," and go outside and do exactly the same as they have for the last 10 or 20 years. Such agreement is merely verbal and has no significance, for the world's misery is not going to be stopped by casual assent. It will be stopped only when one realizes the danger oneself, when one realizes one's responsibility, when one does not leave it to somebody else. Peace will come only when one is peaceful.
There can be no peace with craving and grasping. This craving is a certain energy, a certain state, that is by its very nature harsh, hard, excited, and violent. It is the seed and source of all negative emotions. It is felt and experienced as violence within the heart. It is no wonder greed, craving, and desire for gratification produce wars and violence, for it is actually the energy of war within our hearts, inside our own bodies.
Still, rare is the individual who will even listen to such a fundamental truth, let alone do anything about it. It's as if our very nature does not want us to see this truth or to admit to its validity and significance. The devil does not want to see its deception. Ego does not want to die. It will fight fiercely with all weapons available to avoid the truth, to conceal it, to reject it. The devil will not see itself as the devil. It has to point to something else as the cause of trouble. It will open its hungry mouth, crying, "Give me, fill me, satisfy me." But of course, it will never be filled. It can never be satisfied. For its hunger is bottomless, its emptiness has no limits. It is always the temptation of satisfaction, but never total satisfaction.
The Buddhists call this state of ego the hungry ghost, a being with a huge stomach and a tiny mouth like the hole of a needle. It can never get enough through the small hole to fill the huge stomach. This is the usual state of ego, whether we are conscious of it or not.
The core of ego is a feeling of deficiency, of poverty, of emptiness, of saying, "I am no good, I am worthless, I am empty. Give me, more, more." In this state, I don't love myself, I don't accept myself, I reject myself. I want to run away, distract myself, maybe go to a movie, see a friend, have sex, eat, fill myself with knowledge, or pretend I am okay. I am always wanting to fill this emptiness, always rejecting it, always afraid of it. Most of the time, we don't know that this emptiness, this deficiency, is what is driving most of our actions.
But how sweet it is to say yes to this emptiness. How courageous it is to say, "I feel empty, I feel deficient, and I won't attempt to fill it. I want to see the truth. I want to experience the reality of me. I want to wake up, regardless of how painful it is." Only the hero will take this attitude, for it is a heroic act to see your deficiency, your neediness, your emptiness, and yet not try to manipulate your life to fill it. We are so compulsive, so driven to avoid feeling this basic deficiency of ego. But believe me, my friend, there's no other way. God will not pour His grace if you don't accept your deficiency and stop manipulating. The striving to fill this emptiness is only the devil doing its efficient work, trying to hide its weakness.
The man of peace is not a pacifist. He's simply a pool of silence. He pulsates a new kind of energy into the world. He sings a new song. He lives in a totally new way. His very way of life is that of grace, that of prayer, that of compassion. The man of peace is creative. He's not against war, because to be against anything is to be at war. He is not against war. He simply understands why war exists. And out of that understanding, he becomes peaceful. Only when there are many such people will war disappear. 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 Disappear.